Hi, friends. Hello, the world. Welcome back to this episode of Complaint Free Life. And with you, your host, Stella Monova. And today, I invited my dear friend, colleague that we used to work in Ukraine to come over and talk about one topic that may be interesting for many people, which maybe I don't talk much about lately, is the transitioning to the humanitarian world, or how is it to enter and how is it to work, and especially also what are the things that could be useful for people to consider before embarking on this journey so that they don't let themselves burn out or stress out or feeling like what they are doing in there that they shouldn't be there, or whatever the extremes that we tend to bring ourselves sometimes in the humanitarian world. So that's why I thought, Dejan, your experience of so many years and how you've been an amazing colleague and friend for many of us, that you could share that wisdom by starting introducing yourself. That the floor is yours.
Thank you, Estelle. Thank you for having me in your series of this podcast. So my name is Dejan Obradovic. I'm coming from a small country called Montenegro. It was part of the former Yugoslavia, and my entry into the humanitarian world is very much linked with the war in the former Yugoslavia, with the whole crisis and the dissolution of the country. And I started in 1993. And I joined, the first organization I joined was UNICEF. My professional background, I'm an engineer of electronics, and I was working in one of the factories here in my country. And when the whole economy of the country was start collapsing, there was like really very hard to stay there and for working for. Just for your listeners to know that at that time, the average, I think, salary in the country was between $5 and $10. And it was really the period of hyperinflation, the abnormal conditions. The country was not, this part of the country was not directly, let's say, affected by the war, but many people were fighting, and the country was again under the sanctions, international sanctions. So there was like blockages of all basic materials and everything that. I had a family at that time, and I was really concerned how we will manage through these really hard times. And just by the chance, I had a friend who told me, listen, there is opening here in UNICEF, would you be willing to join? And I was thinking, this is, and the opening, just funny as it is for the position of a driver. So I was thinking to myself, okay, you are studying 4 or 5 years, hardly to get your diploma. You are working in the area which you really like, and it's kind of interesting in a big factory, and with all these electronics around you and the puzzles that you need to solve every day. And then now you will be becoming a driver. But then when you look around, what was the situation in the country, and I said, okay, let me try to see how this will be. And first contract I signed with UNICEF in 1993 was for the 1 month and a half, from like, I think, mid-November until the end of the year. And I thought to myself, okay, let me take some leave time from this factory, and I will start doing that. And pretty soon, it was a very small office, actually, just for your listeners to understand, only 3 people were there. And with my background, I very quickly, I became very useful with all the communication devices, also with the computer equipment that they have and things like that. And one of the first tasks I got was to organize some distribution of the education and some, actually not of health materials for the couple of hospitals in the country. And I never thought that before that, I thought that just if you need to distribute something, you just load the truck, travel and unload the truck. And this whole logistic area and very simple distribution on 7 points, it was like, for me, it was amazing how much work it requires and how much efforts and the details you have to thought of. So pretty quickly, I got really, let's say, deeply involved in all the humanitarian activities that organization had at the time. And I have to say, gradually, I start to like it. And I was thinking, okay, let me spend a couple of months here. Let's see how the things will be developing, and then I will return back to my regular job, for what I was educated. And I realized that as time is passing by, that the situation in the country is not getting any better. And I have to say that financial motive was also quite strong. Quite financial incentive, let's put it this way, because the wages that at that time in the international organization were far bigger than in the country's any organization. And I remember when I got the first salary, I think it was I forgot now, $450 or $500. I thought that I'm the richest person in the world.
Yeah.
It was really that time in the country that with a couple of $100, you were feeling like a king, really. And so that's the beginning. And that was kind of very interesting transition for myself, because in my mind, I was always thinking, okay, at one point I will return back. Okay, at one point I will stop doing this and I will come back to my initial, let's say, profession. So that were the very, very beginnings of my humanitarian entering into the humanitarian world. It was, as you see, it was literally by the chance, because of the crisis, and just because of the finding some means for survival of the family. So that was the main reason why I entered there.
Amazing. So how long you worked since then? How many years would you say?
So in UNICEF, I spent 5 years. And then in the beginning of 1999, I joined UNHCR, first in administration, and then very, very soon I moved to managing programs and program activities of the country. And so I have quite wide spectrum of let's say, experience in the UN, from driving, logistics, administration, then program implementation, negotiations with the partners, etc., etc. So it was kind of interesting that I was climbing let's put it that way, career ladders from the bottom to the somehow middle management positions that I had towards the end of my career in UNHCR. So there were from end of 93, let's say beginning 94, I was working in UNICEF until the beginning 99, and then until a month ago, until May 2022, I worked for UNICEF. So in total, if I'm not mistaken, there's some count of 28 years of the working with the United Nations in various areas of humanitarian field.
Amazing. So for any of us who are watching, I just want to say that Dejan and I will be talking about exiting and how that's like and how to do that. I think that will be another topic, but what I want to concentrate on this one, Dan, it would be, I think, great to reflect back to all those 28 years, which is like, I don't know, a grown-up person, lifetime is for you, is the career, right? So in that time, if you look back, what would you say the biggest, I'm always interested in the mindset part of things, obviously, because the part of what to do and how to do, I think could be maybe another topic. But what I'm interested in is how one goes through that ladder, not being too damaged, maybe is the extreme word, but the other word is still feeling like very enjoying life, exuberant, and not feeling like skeptic. And many people I know that also get very bitter in the career ladder. Many people start developing certain mindset of all of this doesn't work or not useful. But also there are other amazing examples of people who say it was amazing. I've learned so much. I was able to help so much. So how one stays in that mindset of being the person who can make a change, who can help people, partners, and then also have the family intact and raise children and all the other things. Right?
Yeah, so for me, the let's say the part that I noticed very quickly when I joined the UNICEF at that time was the type of communication. So communication levels in international organizations comparing to the national at that time were completely different. And it took me some time to adjust. And basically, I like it because I'm inclining to this more, let's say, softer way of communication. You know, people in Balkan, we are just quite very often very blunt and can be hurting at sometimes. But this was more polite, more professional, etc. And then I learned UNICEF organized a lot of sessions which they asked me, do you want to participate? I said, yes, let me participate with many, I have to say, very many smart people. So one thing that I learned is if you are surrounded by the smart people, then you are learning something, you are developing yourself. And I was always considering that there is so many things that I can learn. So even now I'm very open for new experiences for learning. So my transition to this humanitarian area was, let's say, paired with a lot of surprises. On the very beginning, I had some really bad luck because I was my immediate supervisor at that time was one extremely difficult person, and so I have some, some tough time with him, and then but I have quite good support also from the colleague, three of us, so it was like interesting relations at the very beginning. And I was thinking, honestly speaking, at one point I was thinking to quit after a month or two, but then I realized, okay, let me reconsider my things. And then you are regrouping, and in the hard times the biggest support I had was from my wife, I have to say. And this family basics for me was super important. So whenever there was some situation that I was upset or nervous or whatever, I had a chance to talk to my wife and discuss with her. So I was also supporting her; she was supporting me, and I find this in the life that family basis is really excellent basis for whatever you want to do. If you have a strong family, let's say, behind you and somebody to support you, then all the problems, all the obstacles are easier to overcome, and you can talk through. And for me, at least, that worked out. Another thing that I find, which I never managed to manage properly, is this balance between private life and the professional life. And whoever want to enter into the humanitarian world, very soon the person will realize that you are overwhelmed with the problems of the others, that you also need to find some time for yourself to deal with your own issues and your own, let's say, development, let's put it that way. And I have to say I'm very, very grateful because to the both UNICEF, UNHCR, because I was exposed to so many interesting things that I never thought that I would learn about. It's not only professional thing, but also about interaction between the people, how you are organizing things and think. One of the trainings where I was during the UNICEF as a driver at that time, the organization organized a training for managers. And they invited us, it was three of us at that time, it was the Serbia and Montenegro were the same office. And we were all thinking, we are not managers, what we are doing here. And the guy explained actually that we are all managers. And that either you are managing people, either you are managing funds, or you are managing some assets, whatever, you are doing some kind of management.
Or yourself.
And it was, for me, it was or yourself, your time, you're organizing your time, you're managing something. For me, this was really shocking, but I like the approach. And after that, all my time, I was thinking, okay, I'm manager, what should I be doing now? So it is empowering you to come up and making decisions, even within your small area, whatever you have. but that you have responsibility, that you are not completely just waiting for somebody to tell you something, So
Yeah.
I was developed. I'm not really a natural manager I know people who are really easy to manage people around them, but that I need to learn. So this was for me big development, let's say, process in this regard. And any piece of advice that I can do people who are entering this world, I don't know really. For me, the study of interpersonal communication was big asset when I entered UNICEF in the early ages, because this is really helping. And I'm saying 80%, my friend is saying 90% of the problems that you have in the organization are caused by disturbances in a communication channel.
Yeah.
And more you learn about that, more you learn about yourself, what kind of communication suits you the best, or what kind of interaction, then it is much easier than to enter any kind of organization, but specifically humanitarians are very, very specific in this regard. So I don't know if I managed to answer all of your questions. It's quite long question.
That's very good. I was thinking the other day as well, Dejan, is that in the beginning, I think what helped for me specifically was this curiosity, like you were saying, wanting to learn about things, right? Like I was always curious how other people think, why they think the way they think, and how I think and why the way I think, right? And then I think whenever you come to this world, to the humanitarian world with the curiosity mind, you can learn so much, like you said, not only about other people, but mostly about yourself and how you react and how you don't react, and how you take things in and how you take criticism maybe, right? I remember for me, the biggest thing was we are allowed to criticize people. And I also come from a culture where it's very blunt. You either say, this is how it is, end of discussion, or you don't say anything. And I was very surprised also that you can actually have conversations where it can be helping you grow, or it can also help you be very frustrated. So depending on how you take it, this is how it can be. So, and the other thing that I was reflecting on was that when you enter your humanitarian world, one of the things that can be very overwhelming for many people is this institution with its structures and systems. And it's easy to get like very sucked in and immersed and forget about what's important for you. And I love that you said about the family priorities, having all of that support in place, friends, and what's really important to you, that you keep that and continue maintaining that instead of just making the work the central piece of it, and then forget about, or not forget, but not paying much attention to everything else. So that's why put yourself in the place of, how you can maintain your priorities while also working in the institution or in the organization. The other thing maybe, Dejan, we could talk about from your own experience is that obviously there will always be a lot of challenges. And I love that you said that you are very a problem-solving person and personality. And I think that's one of the biggest assets as character we may have in the humanitarian world, is always looking for how we can solve it instead of dwelling in, oh my God, we have this and what are we going to do? And then like just get all dramatic about it, but rather focus on solving it. So I would love for you to share your experience of how one deals with problems in the way that's constructive, how you have dealt with it over the years, like with challenging supervisors, with challenging situations, with challenging partners, with challenging personalities, really in the end of the day, right? And how one deals in a way that's useful for you and useful for the other person. What would you say?
I mean, this is very much beginning from person to person. I mean, I'm not naturally a manager. This is coming for me to look at the solutions. Whenever there is a situation, I'm looking at the solutions. And so this is coming kind of naturally for me. And I didn't have to think too much about that and to develop that part of my personality, let's put it that way. But there are issues when you get very highly emotional about certain things, and what I find, and that you also realize that you are getting biased,
Yeah.
that you are getting, you don't like somebody or some organization, some person, and then you want to act just very, very negatively towards them. But I was always doing two things. I was always, first of all, self-reflecting and trying to establish what are the facts there. What are the facts there? What is really going on? What do we know that is happening? And what is really, what are the sources, the main sources of the problem? And the second thing that I was, and I really like the UNHCR because of that, is the always on the big issues, I was trying to gather the group of people and to discuss the issue. Because I'm very much aware that I'm not the smartest person in the world, although I would like to be, but I'm not. And some external eyes, external wisdom, and the people who are maybe, some of them are directly engaged, some of them are not. When you present the whole problem, then you can hear and to see the issues from the different pair of eyes, and that was very, very much, very, very helpful in the situation. We had a situation with a partner who was doing some funny things, and then I was tasked to, how should I say, just to check what are basic, monitoring of the activities, and then I find then I make like 30 recommendations. This is kind of not normal, usually you do like 2 or 3 and that's it. And they have like 30 areas that they would require some kind of intervention. Then I present this. And emotional detachment is very much important in this kind of situation. If you just say to yourself, okay, I may not like these guys, but let me just establish the basic facts and let me present this whole thing, and then let's see how the things will be developing. And I had a friend of mine, she was very, very smart lady. And she was engaged in the junior position. I just sharing this example because people are overestimating their role in the organization. And as a junior, she was replacing her boss on one of the meetings. And there are a bunch of people, there are so many problems. It was 1999 in Kosovo crisis. And so many issues were happening at the same time. And after the meeting, she came to me literally crying. And she was saying, they are complaining they have no water, they have no income, they have no supplies, they are nothing. I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do. What should we doing? What should we doing? She was overwhelmed with all these issues. And I told her, are you the head of this office? Are you running this operation? She said, no, I'm not. But what is your position there? You are junior assistant. Put all the notes from all the issues from the meeting in the notes and inform your supervisor. And sometimes this hierarchy, although it may sound very blunt, it may sound very, how should I say, bureaucratic, is actually helping. Because so if you don't want to be overwhelmed with all the things that you are seeing, then you have to find mechanisms how you are passing the message, how you are communicating within the organization and with external counterparts. So those were just a few examples that helped me also, and the experiences I had just to establish a proper balance between the let's say emotions, because we are all about emotions, and also to manage to work towards the solutions, towards defining what is the best way for the organization in some easier times, but also in some quite difficult times, I have to say. Sometimes not all the job is very pleasant, sometimes you have to deal with funny things, let's put it that way.
I love that you say it, funny things.
Yeah.
But of course, in the moment, it doesn't feel funny, obviously, for many of us, right? And we will be looking at it as a big problem. But what I love of what you're saying is that I think it's important that we don't try to control things that we have no control over. And I think oftentimes this is what we do, right? We are like, we want to save the whole world. We want to give everyone everything that they want, and if we don't do it, we feel like we're letting them down, we're letting ourselves down, and then we get into this spiral of never-ending story and shame, and then we go home feeling like we're not saving the world, obviously. And therefore I think it's important, like you're saying, is that having that emotional detachment, the facts. And what helped me in my career as well is that at some point I think I have learned not to blame everyone around me for not functioning the way that I think everything should be functioning.
Yeah.
I think we come with a lot of our expectations as a very young humanitarian. I mean, I joined 2019 actually. So, and you always want to come with this expectation of this needs to be in place, this needs to be happening, and ideally everything happening at the same time. But when you have a system and processes in place, things don't go the way that you think should be going. And it's also a good thing, like Dejan was saying, right? Because you can also offload some of the responsibility to the system and the process and
Yeah.
say
Yes.
everyone has their own place and role. So we need to work in those framework. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting what you are saying that within the organization also I was a couple of times. I mean, you have to be honest, sometimes I'm frustrated with my family, sometimes I'm frustrated with the organization. So that's kind of normal thing. And then you analyze also what is happening, what we're working, what we're not working.
Yeah.
And then you realize these are only just organization is built of the people, and we all have our own. It's not like some machine, ideal machine that is running, even machines have their own problems. But it's not like nothing is ideal. It's just realistic. And what I like with both UNICEF and UNHCR, that the organizations were looking inside themselves. I witnessed this for the short period while I was in UNICEF, but also later on, they were analyzing how they were doing. It was not like, okay, we are the best organization in the world and we are doing, but they're analyzing it, they're correcting their measures. There are sometimes that we have proper response, sometimes less proper, less efficient, let's put it that way. But I like that the organization was open for changes. And the changes, to be ready to change, is one very, very important thing for on the personal level and the organizational level. Once you said, okay, now that's it, that's the best that I can do, then you're doomed to failure. That at least my experience, in this house.
Yes, exactly. And also, I think you make a very good point that whenever, our brains want to blame others or the system, which we often tend to do, be very specific as to who you mean or what you mean, what situation you mean, and what are you trying to get out of that by doing it. And instead of being like very general or very black and white of this is all bad or this is all good, but being very specific about it. And also I remember also in my introduction meeting after, of course, in my case, I had an introduction training to UNHCR after 6 years of my career in UNHCR. This can happen, and that's fine. I learned a lot still. But what I loved about that training was that the guy who was training us told us that don't blame UNHCR for any of your life's failures. and I love it simply because it simply puts it that if you are saying, oh, I didn't get my personal life intact, or I didn't get this done, or I didn't get that done because of organization or UNHCR, ask if that's really true, right? Because in the end, you decided to sign up the contract, you decided to work with the system. So now find out how that type of mindset is helping you or not. And if not, then decide to do something else. So I think I wanted to point that out. And the other thing, Dan, maybe could be interesting and helpful to talk about, and I know that in some of the latest conversations in UNHCR, we talked about the trust factor. And I love that topic for many, many reasons. But what I love about your involvement in that conversation was that how can we get that trust into our interpersonal communication, into our team's communication, a concept that's very like we're just doing it maybe for ticking the box concept for many people, but if you really look at it, it's something that I'm noticing from my own personal growth is something that we individually, ideally, want to be having it, using it, choosing it in times when it gets difficult. So I would love to talk about that from your perspective, Dan. How would you say, in terms of trust, like what is missing or what we can do about trust that would be helpful for our better communication, for the lack of a better word?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for opening. This was one of the topics that I was really much involved a couple of years ago, and I still remember that I had that conversation when you ask people, okay, who do you trust? How you establish your trust levels? Many were they say, okay, I basically trust people until it is proved that they are not trustworthy, until they return back like mistrust. I have few people who are saying, I trust nobody until they prove that they are trustworthy. So you have like two completely opposite, let's say, directions in the how this trust in the interpersonal communication. I believe that the trust is super important. If you are working with the people you cannot trust, and then it's not good environment. Maybe the problem is with the people, but maybe the problem is with you. So because the trust is rarely about the facts. It's mostly about your perception. How do you see world around you? How do you see people acting in this regard? I like this, my technical background, I like this mathematics and theories of that involve like some analysis and here and there. And I bumped on one of the theories of the games, which is saying that they are analyzing things, it was just about the trust. So what they came out as the result from the training is that analysis is that if you invest trust, another person invests untrust. So it is failing to, let's say, meet your trust expectation. Forget about it. Forgive. And say, okay, maybe that was the wrong day. Maybe I misunderstood something. Maybe we didn't communicate this in the very beginning properly. And just don't immediately return untrust or lose the faith. If this is happening for the second time, do the same.
Okay.
So you should be, and if this is happening for the third time, then you should react. Then you should return, let's say, untrust. Because, and in that theory, they proved that the best level of the, let's say, how should I put it, work in the big organization, bigger group of the people, if you are able to take 2 times untrust and then only third time to react. That was kind of interesting for me, and I find it actually very useful in even day-to-day communication. Not even if you are talking with your neighbor or some family members. And I think that we as a human beings, we have some psychologically, problems that we are wired to act immediately. Just somebody tell you something that you don't like, and you just want to jump up to the roof and start fighting and arguing or whatever. And I believe if we can find a little bit strength in ourselves just to wait a little bit, just pause a little bit, just some small reflect about yourself, about the whole situation, try, as I told you before, establish some facts, that will help really a lot. If we see something is going wrong, let's not jump immediately blaming each other, what is going wrong here. And also, let's not forget to praise if somebody is doing a good job. And we also very, very often forgetting that. And this is building a trust in the team. If the people can see that they are recognized for the work that they are doing, genuinely that you are praising them and enjoying working with them, then they are returning. More you give the trust, more trust you get back. That's at least my life experience. Let's put it that way.
Exactly, I love it. And of course, I've been guilty of all the things of, jumping the gun too quickly and and
Same
blaming
here.
and
Same here.
exactly. And but you always learn from all of those mistakes, obviously. So one of the things that comes up often for me when I think about trust is that the more we know how to do it with ourselves, the easier it is to do it with others. And the less we know how to do it with ourselves, more difficult to do it with others, simply because we're not practiced. It's like a common sense, right? I always give the analogy of, if you know how to uh, drive a car well, then you're probably going to explain or at least show how to do it. But if you don't know and you're going to learn from someone who doesn't know, probably you're not going to learn much. So it's the same logic. But the other thing that comes up when it comes to trust, the end that I was thinking and reflecting is that, like you said, is that invest in it and the first time and don't react to it. And I love that. And when you said the third time you may react, and my thinking was that even if we do react and we reciprocate, let's say, with the same level of not trust that other person is showing, is that really worth our time? I was thinking. Of course, everyone should decide for themselves, right? But what I was thinking is that, oftentimes we, of course, are inclined to react and inclined to do something, and rather better not to do that and wait and reflect on it and give the benefit of the doubt, like protection people would say, right? And then also, if the other person is not reciprocating with the same level of trust, you can always decide for yourself how you want to deal with that person, particularly, but not let that experience influence you for the next experience. Right? We often get into this mode of, oh no, this person is not trustworthy, so it must be everyone. Our brain gets into this. It must be, then I can't trust. But like oftentimes we go into different cultures and we start experiencing one distrust and two distrust, and we start saying, oh, that means maybe in this culture they're not going to do the reciprocation, and therefore I should be always on alert and all of this. And maybe that may not helpful for you. So that's why think about for yourself, if you're not getting the reciprocation, does that give you enough information to be then distrusting with others, or you treat each individual individually and then decide for yourself if you want to continue investing in the trust or not? This is just, I wanted to say. Dejan, you had something to say on this.
Yeah, I think that you summarize it very nicely. The only thing that even if I very rarely bump to the person that was not deserving any kind of trust, So with some person, you're just a little bit more cautious when you are communicating after a couple of, let's say, mistrust mistrust actions that you are on the receiving end. But you're not stopping communicating. You're just a little bit more cautious, a little bit more, maybe more formal, but because we still have to work. Yeah. We still have to work together. I mean, again, as I said in the beginning, sometimes you like people around you, sometimes you are maybe less, different energies, different types of personality, but we have to work together. And this is how we should be learning to work together. Yeah. And not to make our lives miserable, with each other. It's not about that. Exactly. So I had a couple of situations when I was on the receiving end for the mistrust, but I realized that a few times I was the one who was not trusted. I mean, you have to be also fair to that sometimes your actions, either you are tired, you are nervous, you're overwhelmed with something else, you are not having all the facts in front of you, and then you are deciding on something and it is helping that you are hurting people around you. I mean, that's life. We can talk about the others, but we can also think about ourselves. And whenever I realized that I did something wrong, I was really trying to properly apologize for my actions, because it is not okay when you realize that you are doing wrong, and so that you can continue working with that person. So I think that's kind of also important, that we are not always thinking about others who are doing wrong, but also let's see what we are doing wrong. So that's kind of also
Yes,
out of the
exactly.
self-reflection, let's put it that way.
Exactly. When we're making damages that we
Yeah,
could avoid. Exactly.
true.
Absolutely. And the last point, maybe on the trust, is that what I have learned over and over from my experience is that trust can be chosen. And that's a beautiful thing, meaning that it's not something that we need to like take long to develop within us, or some kind of a very like, I don't know, arduous process of developing within us, but rather we can always choose to trust when there's option not to. And that's like a mental construct for you to think about. You can always choose it instead of, oh, I just hadn't developed it, so therefore I don't know. It's not really an excuse, just to share. Okay, having said that, I think we're coming to the end of, having this wonderful conversation. Dejan, any last words that you would like to share, the wisdoms and not to do's and do's? I don't know, anything that comes up
Uh,
for anyone who is now so excited to be in the humanitarian world.
I mean, the only thing that I can, it's not just for humanitarian, but for everything. I would really like that we study more about learn more about communication with each other, because as I said, 90% of the interpersonal in the organization problems they have with the neighbors problems you have. And there are a couple of tips. We don't have time for this now, but there are to learn also how to handle difficult conversation. That's also very important. Here and there in life, you will have to have some very tough conversation, which you don't want to do it, but you have to do it.
Yeah.
And preparing for that, it's also very important. And also always take some time for self-reflection.
Yes.
Blaming others, it's okay, it's natural, it's completely fine, but also trying to understand also how you are acting, how you are behaving, what your actions could be seen from the outside world, although you always know that you are doing with the best intentions, but sometimes best intentions are not good enough.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
that's the piece of wisdom that I can I can give you and your listeners for the end of this conversation.
Amazing. Yeah. So for me, the last one that I was thinking of is that you can always put yourself in the empowered position to handle and to do something and to solve a problem, instead of being in the disempowered position of, oh, I can't do anything, I'm the victim, or I am this person who has no power, or whatever that we put ourselves sometimes. And sometimes it feels very easy to do that, and I've done it so many times. But what is the downside of that is that we will always be feeling like we're losing or we're not in charge. And whenever we feel that, we don't tend to like our life or our work, and then we get very frustrated. So that's why, if you can help yourself, don't do that. I've done it and it didn't lead to places that I wanted. So thank you, Dejan, so much. It was such a pleasure talking to you as usual. And whenever I think of Dejan and our time together, even though there were so many challenging parts, but I feel always like with a smile, was this warm heart of, Dejan. And then I'm sure that so many colleagues think of you that way. And I think creating that level of reputation and memory around one during these tough times, during conflict wars that we work through, right, is, I think, a very, I don't know, humanly great achievement. That's why I'm just grateful that you share that experience, so that we can all say, yes, we have that type of colleagues that's so great to work with, that we can brag about. So thank you, Dejan, for this. And we will continue the conversation on transitioning from the humanitarian world. And that will be another conversation in this month. So
thank you for so many nice words. I'm not sure if this is seen, but I'm blushing a little bit, because I feel it too much, I was just there and I was just being myself. No, nothing more than that. But thank you, and thank you very much for having me on your podcast. It's a really interesting experience, and it's also give me opportunity to also think about a couple of things in my life, what was happening and how I entered this whole humanitarian world. Thank you
Yeah,
for that.
exactly. Thank you. Thank you all for listening, and stay tuned for the next sequel to talk with Dan. Bye.
Bye-bye.